All right, we are back for, is this episode number 6? I think so. We gonna unmute you.
I gotta get my mute game up. So yeah, this is episode 6, and happy to be here, Jessica. Good to see you.
Yeah, okay. It's been busy, but we keep showing up, so I'm proud of us. Um, and I thought the topic that you wanted to talk about today was actually really interesting as well. I kind of switched the naming up a little bit just to make. I feel like we all family around here, so it was a little bit formal. But today we're gonna talk about building on a budget when it comes to software.
Right.
Because the reality is we know that some of these platforms are kind of expensive to run on. They make sense for big companies, but not necessarily always for small teams or small projects. So I'm excited to talk about it, figure out what kind of brought you to the issue you ran into recently, and then I wanted to talk about some of the things that I usually end up teaching students for deployments and projects and things like that. So we're jumping into that today.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, so I just recently had built a little small project, and I was like, hey, instead of being I wanted to act like a Gen Zer, and versus Gen Xer, and I was like, you know what, I am going to use some of these services on AWS to deploy my little app, and it was a database. It was instead of like making it like a application running on like a EC2 instance, which is just a VM kind of, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put it on their Fargate service, which is their container service. So set that all up, and it's been running for about a month. Looked at my bill, it was $200, and I was like, wow. I was like, and I've only been up for a month. Obviously I have a few users, no customers, users that started to look at this, and I just started thinking about all the stuff I do with startups, right? And all the times we tell them to go and use the big cloud providers, and I'm not just picking on AWS, right? This is probably ubiquitous across the big boy cloud providers. And in true enough, startups, they do get credits. But I recently also had, because I think there's just a couple things that happened. The
Mhm.
founder I work with, she said, hey, I built my stuff on AWS. We have free credits, which is kind of how they hook you, right? It's how the big boys kind of hook you into it. They give you a bunch of free credits. And after the credits ran out, she was stuck with like a $900 bill per month. And she wasn't even at the point where she was getting revenue yet.
Right.
So that's what I guess for me was the catalyst for this discussion.
Mhm.
Those two things happening, me and then talking to this founder that I coach. I really felt like we needed to have this discussion, because I think it's great to build on these, what I'll call top tier services, because when you're ready to scale, you're already in a lot of cases already either architected to scale, or you can start, you can, enable a few services, and bada bing, bada boom, you are ready to start being able to take on, thousands of users.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
you don't need that yet.
you don't necessarily need that yet, and it's like it's not an overnight thing, right? I feel like we do try to be so very well prepared for the future, to the point where it's like you said, now you have $1,000 bill when them credits run out, and it's like we not there yet. We not there yet. Like, if I can't afford $1,000 a month yet on my service, does it really make sense for me to be on that platform? Because ultimately that's what's going to happen. And so it's interesting for me for two reasons. Firstly, which is a whole nother scenario we can come back around to, but I haven't told you this yet, but I'm actually stepping into this role for one of the companies I've been working with, um, becoming a CTO with them.
Oh,
And
good stuff.
that's a big thought process, right? Because you automatically kind of want to go with that mindset of, okay, when we start to build the tech out, let's go over into AWS or something like that. Let's be prepared for users. But in reality, like you said, we need to prove out the the profitability and actually, start getting some revenue before we start thinking about that, because it's kind of hard to walk that back once you already built everything up over there, like ripping everything out and then deciding you need to put it somewhere else would kind of be a pain, honestly.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, look, this is our co-host talking. He wants to
Oh
say
yeah,
something. Yeah, as our
he's
co-host wants to say something. Let the
we got
co-host say
baby boy
something.
is in the studio
Uh,
today.
yeah, so he said, hello. Look at that.
Say I
So,
got bad hair.
well, I mean, I think me and you do a lot of MVPs, and I think when we start thinking about from the software side, I think we got it down with what an MVP is and how to kind of make it so that it's lean, mean, only dealing with and implementing the high end use cases that can really prove out the idea. But somehow we just when we start talking about infrastructure, we don't really look at it that way. We don't really start thinking about it that way in a lot of cases. So I think that's my mindset here. It's like, in order to deploy this thing, I don't need these very expensive services to do it. I just needed to run to prove it out, because 9 out of 10, I'm gonna throw away the MVP, or I'm gonna re-architect it, because what I've learned from testing this with early adopters. So I don't think we need to go and put a lot of energy in this, because you don't know how many times I've been with people that's like, oh yeah, this is my CTO, and the CTO is like, yes, I think we should build this on AWS, and we need to have all this security stuff. And I'm like, you don't even have no users. You don't even have any. I mean, like I think security is important. So don't get me wrong, for people who are listening, and those who are security snobs. I'm I'm down for it, but I think there's ways of building which doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, and it doesn't necessarily tie you into a particular cloud provider, because you don't want to be tied in just yet, because you don't know how well this thing is going to do. So that's my beef.
Yeah, and I would even say, I also have been running into this with students. So when we teach in boot camps, for some reason, I don't know, of course, we're trying to get people ready for the industry, but it's like we tend to try to push people towards like, hey, let's teach you how to deploy something to AWS. And again, it's like, why is that necessary? Realistically, if I'm being honest, I never really had to deploy anything to AWS except when I was a bootcamp student, because when I worked on teams where we used AWS, that was somebody else's job. And it's a big job, like infrastructure, at that scale, you need a little bit of training to really like be able to configure AWS the way you want it to, and like even to optimize the pricing, because it's a lot to look at. It's a lot of services. It's a lot to take in. So we also used to teach Heroku a lot, but and I don't know how much you might have used Heroku or not, but for me, like in a small project space, it was like Heroku was always the thing that we taught, because they had a free hobby tier, so you can just deploy projects to Heroku, and you were good to go. But they got rid of that tier recently. So we've been looking for just platforms that can kind of fill that gap. So I literally just a couple days ago was teaching deployment to the last cohort that I was working with, and I got them using Vercel and Render, which is the one I really like. I really like Render. But those both are platforms where they're platform as a service. You can deploy a lot of different projects on there. They have support for different frameworks, but then at the same time, um, they have a free tier. So it's like you can go ahead and get something running for free, and you don't have to move up to another tier until you actually need to.
Yeah, I'm checking them out now. Never heard of them before, and this is kind of cool. So basically, because I do remember hearing a lot about Heroku, and I guess they were like, "Hey, we need to start making money." So, which is fine, right? Because now they've been around for a minute, so they probably had enough customers that they could monetize. But that's great. It opens up for another market, another company to come into that spot. So it's like Vercel and Render is there. So um, now I like this because I'm looking at it here. Is it I'm just trying to see. Can you deploy any type of application in there? Because I can see here you can, it looks like hobby. I'm working on a personal projects. Perfect. Is
You
there
can
any
deploy a lot of like I teach usually web development, so
Mhm.
they support like JavaScript, Python, Ruby, some of the more like uh newer-ish languages, I guess you would say, to Go, for example. So I'm not gonna say they support everything, but for the most part, anything that's like especially web and software based, you should be able to get a project up and running. Now with Vercel, even though
what
I deployed Express over on Vercel, I think they more so were geared towards like front end projects. At least, I haven't spent a lot of time with Vercel, so from what I was seeing, it was a lot more of like, hey, bring your front end or something that's based off of static site generator. I think they have more JavaScript support. But with Render, when my students do back end projects with Python, they use Flask or Django or something like that. It's also really easy for them to deploy over there. That's why I really like Render.
Yeah, and it looks like it supports some databases as well, right? So it looks like 'cause that's always the other things, like where does the database, reside, So
Yeah. So for databases right now, I'm not sure where the SQL databases go as far as like the programs that I teach with, but I know for the MERN stack with MongoDB, we just use MongoDB Atlas, which is that one's managed in the cloud, and they also have like basically it's a hobby tier. Like you can have one free cluster and you can deploy. So I have like some small pet projects on MongoDB Atlas, and that one is really nice to integrate with. Because I feel like I've also seen a lot of people use Firebase for
Mhm.
Mongo, but I haven't
Right.
really looked at Firebase a lot recently. I've just been using Atlas.
So it looks like Vercel, what it does is like what you're exactly saying is that you can put these integrations into your project. In for instance, like you can put in Mongo as an integration and you just specify where the Mongo Atlas database is. And obviously you need to go to the Mongo Atlas you know SaaS service and sign up, get an account, and you look like you just point for sell at it. So that's kind of cool. So basically, it sounds like this leveraging the free services that the underlying database provider has, if it has available, and then let's call Vercel like a middleware, right? It's a middleware layer that can, I don't know, middleware is probably not the right word, but a service that you can run your front end code in. Probably is a better way of
Yeah.
saying that. So I like it. You can run it. Yeah, I like it. I mean, so I need to like get out of my Generation X and jump to the Z deal.
I told you you're
Uh,
doing
uh,
good. You got DigitalOcean. A lot of I
yeah,
mean, I still really don't know how to use DigitalOcean, but.
yeah, but I like because that's the old person in me, right? Because I'm like, oh man, I gotta get to the VM and install the software and set it up. Now I do like DigitalOcean prices, right? The six
Mhm.
dollars per month for a VM. So you're talking about it's very cheap, right? For a
So they
whole
don't
the
have
whole year.
do they have a free tier or is it all they all are paid tiers?
I have not. I think that's the lowest they have is like $6 a month. I don't think they have a free tier.
Okay.
Let's go check here. This Digital Ocean free tier. Yeah, you know what? They may actually have. You know what? They have credits. They'll give you
Okay.
some $200 worth of credits. It looks like,
Well,
but it
that was
doesn't
the
look like
other
they
thing
have
we
a
were
free
talking
tier.
about, right? The credit system and how that can be interesting.
Yes, 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 yes. But it's weird, right? Because like it's like DigitalOcean gives $200 credit, but if you're working with an accelerator or you're working with some type of organization that's helping you start up, incubator, whatever the buzzword is that you're using to describe the organization that's helping you kind of bootstrap your company, they typically will be working with AWS startups, and AWS startups
Mhm.
will give you a large number of credits. Like you're talking about, sometimes five to $10,000 worth of credits. Um, and obviously they do that because they want you to get sticky on their platform. And five or $10,000 of credits, it really doesn't go. It goes, relatively speaking, it doesn't go that far because the services
Yeah.
cost much more.
That's the key, right? If you say somebody is like, "Okay, I'm a founder, I built my project and it ends up costing me 900, $1,000 a month," that's only a year of credits really,
Mhm.
and that's the thing that I was saying is like, okay, well, if I have to really think about it, I don't even know how to optimize my pricing and my services, those credits are kinda misleading and making me think, "Okay, I got ample amount of credits to spend." Now, that's different than when you say, yeah, DigitalOcean gives you credits, but then DigitalOcean also has like $6 a month type of service that you could be using your credits on. So it's gonna go way farther, even if they're only giving you $200. So just like I don't know, maybe there's more we could understand about that whole process as developers, because obviously the platforms they want to make money at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem I think that I don't know. I don't know if if I'm the only person having this problem. So
I
for
doubt
those
it.
who please, for those who's listening, you listen to later, please just drop us a note or something, this hit us on either on Twitter, probably is the best, right? You see our handles here at Mac Hendricks and at MetaDevGirl, and just kind of tell us your experience around this because like you said, Jessica, I can't be the only person, but just experiencing it firsthand, I was like, how do I get around this?
Yeah.
Um, and how do I kind of tell other people about this as well? Because I think a lot of people want to build products and they start going down the path of building these products and they get to the point where they're getting a bill, right? They put the credit card in and then the first
Right.
month and then they get kind of a sticker shock, right? So but here goes the other thing is like, you know, for certain services, do we should we even be like, this goes back to the whole MVP discussion. Like, should we be using these no code local tools to do the development of your MVP? And that way you don't have
Yeah.
to worry about that. I don't know. I mean, I guess for what you do for teaching people, they
It's
need to
a
be able
little
to
bit
deploy.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even though they have to be able to deploy, the thing is,
Yeah.
they end up with the struggle that they can't leave their projects up for their portfolio because they're gonna constantly be
Mm.
burning through those credits, and they have to worry about turning it off or potentially getting a bill down the line. So it's very counterproductive in a lot of ways, because I'm like, okay, I went through all this trouble, it's going to take me at least a few months to possibly get a job. I want my projects to be up and running. I don't want to have to turn it off after demo day of my boot camp. I need people to be able to see what I'm doing. So yeah, just having those alternatives is so helpful. That's why Heroku was so popular for us. And I think even with Firebase, because if you end up getting into like a lot of Mongo based stuff, then we'll be deploying stuff on Firebase, and that would work out for the most part. But just being like, hey, teach somebody how to deploy to AWS is I don't think that that's super necessary. Um,
That-
so yeah,
that's interesting.
Render is the one that I'm using now, and I'm just trying to dig in deeper to see what are the like it's a whole slew of like new services that actually are available, and I really don't know what the exhaustive list looks like anymore.
No, it's interesting. I didn't even think of it from that perspective. It's interesting that people want to leave their projects up so that when they're trying to get a job, people aren't just looking at their GitHub, is what you're saying, but they also can look at something that's actually running as well.
Exactly.
I
That's
love
the
it.
whole point, because those are usually web development based projects. Then
Hmm.
you got like open source projects as well. It was funny because this was a conversation that came up in a recent open source project discussion, where it was like the terminology that was used was like you sometimes you have a bigger hammer than you need for the problem. Like the solution that people tend to come up with a lot of times, like you said, it's overly technical to the point where it's like, yeah, this is technically like the thorough way to do it, but also this is more than we this is probably more than we need.
Yeah, that's interesting you said that too. I had a founder come back and say, "Hey, I'm trying to build this thing and we did this database design." And he sends his database design like this, by the way, they don't have any product today. And his database design it wasn't super complicated, but I'm like, do you really need all of this in order to get started? So I think in general, if you're out there and you're listening, if you're building your first product, it should be super simple because you need to learn from your customer, and then you can start building out something more complicated. And that's a lesson I even have to sit back and look at and say, when I'm building something new, it's like, do I really need all these bells and whistles? I, I don't know. I wonder what other boot camps are doing, like the General Assembly out there, and
Yeah, I would be curious to see some of that stuff.
he's not
Mr.
happy.
Max not talking to you.
I'm
No,
sorry,
he
man.
knew.
I'm
I think
sorry.
he knew I was muting him
Oh. Well, I mean, like while he's being muted, I wanted to talk through this a little bit around I think I guess here goes the steps I would take. So, because I have people always saying, "Hey, I want to build an app." And I think the thing that you want to do is kind of think to yourself, how do I build something that people care about? And so don't worry about the underlying infrastructure in the beginning. Just worry about building some level of UI interface that people will fall in love with. And quite honestly, that relates to the problem that you're trying to solve. And try and find something as cheap as possible. And we gave a couple options in this episode here, and also look at the no code, low code platforms, because those are all inclusive platforms a lot of times. The one, yeah, obviously the one that me and Jessica are pretty excited about and we've been using for a while is Adalo. And that contains the UI, the database component of it, and has the ability to do integrations and call outs to things such as Stripe. So I would start there. I wouldn't go on a tangent trying to build all these things, even though I know you heard about the Netflix story. They built everything on AWS, and take whatever startup story you've heard, and they've all built it on top of Google or Azure. You're not ready for it in a lot of cases. And when you are ready, you can refactor. If you've never heard that term before, it just means take your application and basically redo it to a way, in this case, that will be suitable to run on these cloud platforms. And you'll have plenty of time to do it, because if you have customers paying you, you will be able to take some money and go and re-architect the portion of your application and run on these cloud environments. So don't worry about it. Don't get scared off by that. There's alternatives out here in order to help you run your application. So not sure if I bought you enough time, Jessica.
Yeah, I mean, he has the mouse, but it's off this time. But no, I
Okay.
think that's very helpful, and it's a good conversation to be having. Again, like I said, for me, I'm it's just it's so alluring. They're like, "Hey, come on, come over here." But I mean, I don't care what startup story it is. I don't think I've ever heard a startup story where they kept the same tech stack. Like, they always end up having to redeploy at some point in time. So, you're going to have to make that decision. I think it's been really great to lean into the no code and low code, because it almost even forces us to put that conversation off until later and focus on what you should be focusing on in the MVP phase, which is, can I actually get users that really want to use this and even pay for it? Um, And then, it even minimizes the development time that goes into it. Because like you said, it's very little you can over architect
Mhm.
in the no code platform. Like, you kind of have to work within some restraints, and that gives you a little bit more of an ability to focus, and not go off the rails with like the most complicated database structure that you can come up with.
But here goes the other thing too, is that I'm gonna shift the focus of this a little bit and talk about AI. I'm seeing everybody
Mhm.
out there is like their app. I gotta add some generative AI into my application. I want to have these models that do all these things. All right, y'all, we gotta stop it. Okay, we gotta stop it. All right, in order
We
to
need
do
that. We need that Michael Jordan meme. Like, stop it. Get some help.
like stop it. 'Cause it's gonna it triggers me every time. It's like, you know how much data you need to be able to be like to have something that actually accurately be able to provide predictive or answers or to questions. There's a lot of data. So I think if you're just starting out building your application, you gotta sometimes you heard this before, fake it till you make it. So if you're collecting data from customers, just simply put it in a SQL database. And if you see, just use simple pattern recognition. Just if you see this set of words, show this response, and it'll be okay. Because now you're gonna once you get to a point where you have enough data, then you can build a model around it. Let's just stop with all the like do this. Or if you want, you can try an API, use the Chat GPT API, send it there, and then you just need to filter those results that come back, because some of the results that come back is not the right results, or it sounds weird. So you may need to do a little filtering when it
Yeah.
comes back. But there's ways of faking it, and Jessica, you probably know more about this than I do. But I mean, I just every time I cringe when somebody says, "I want my thing to have AI, generative AI support on day one," and I think that is crazy to me.
It is, and then a lot of people are saying like, "Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna train a model," which is like hypothetically, yes, but absolutely no. Um, what has recently been discussed is more. I agree. Yeah, we're not doing that.
Right, right.
But the recent kind of conversations has more so been around, you should be fine tuning a foundational model, and like
Mhm.
you said, something like OpenAI's tools, or even a lot of open source models have been coming out recently, where you should be fine tuning over those, because in reality, those models that you're trying to compete with, they got trained on billions of parameters, high scale computers, like
Yep.
years of training is going into these models. You're not going to do that. Especially if we talk about building on a budget. You don't got no data, and you don't got no hardware, and you don't got no big old like $1 billion company investing in the work that you're doing. You're not going to come up with something that's better. I'm not, I don't want to stifle innovation like by any means, but it's just being realistic about what you're trying to compete with. And so, that's a whole nother conversation with AI. But I was like, here, it's a whole nother conversation with AI. But I was recently just kind of thinking about that idea of the fact that at the end of the day, like, I think I might have been telling you this and saying we should do an episode about this, but it's like the mindset that we have for software development is actually not, a lot of that does not translate well into the AI and machine learning world.
Mhm.
Just putting something out there and hoping that it works, and then trying to iterate it on it later. It's a very different experience when your model does not perform as expected than, oh, I got a bug in my system and my app went down or my app crashed. It's not the same thing. Like if Google had the thing where they were like, oh, their image recognition system was like trying to say that people, like black people, were being categorized as gorillas. Like that was a thing. Like, you don't want these types of spectacles in the midst of you trying to bring a product to market, because you don't know enough about the technology and just trying to implement something from the ground up. I mean, it's the same with security. I don't think a lot of people know enough about security to just be trying to roll their own authentication system, and then having people's like personal information in the system, and you think it's secure, but it's absolutely not. So I don't
I
want to go off
agree.
on a tangent, but
No, no,
it's
I
very
no,
interesting.
no, I agree. I think, you just stay focused on what the core business problem is at first, and then kind of go from there, because that keeps everything simple. That keeps, the workflows that you're building. It keeps the whole build process of the software simple, keeps the
Mhm.
platform in which the platform that your software is sitting on affordable. All
Right.
right. So I think, you just got to ease into this, little by little. So I think that was really the premise of this conversation. So
Mhm.
I think this was a great conversation. Um, like, what do you like? Let's kind of transition. Do you have anything you wanted to chat about, like something that's happening in your world these days?
Well, I just feel like I'm going into a new realm recently because, we do a lot of work with startups, and I usually build MVPs for startups. And I did decide to uh, become a CTO or move into a CTO role for one of the companies that I've been working with recently. So that's just very interesting because I'm like, I feel super prepared for the shift that I'm making, but at the same time, I'm just like, okay, like it's been a while since I made such a big shift. I feel like where it's like this is a different role than what I'm used to on a day to day. I have to think about a lot of different things that is usually someone else's responsibility. So that's very interesting. But and I hope that this kind of conversation can be helpful because I'm like I realize now something I didn't realize earlier in my career, which is like the fact that the first thing that I know I can do is say, "Hey, Mac, okay, so can we talk about like I have people that I can actually ask questions to. I know like I have people that I've been on boards with and worked with that have been in these roles before, have been really successful with becoming CTOs and CEOs of tech startups and things like that. So it's just I'm like, I'm grateful that I know I don't have to have it all figured out. It's a lot to grow into, but it's very interesting when you start trying to look at like what does it take to be a CTO startup in particular.
Mhm.
There's some resources out there, but really not a lot because a lot of stuff is more so geared towards a company that already exists and coming into an existing system versus building something from the ground up and building a team from the ground up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was just Googling CTO for Dummies, and there's no book for it. So,
No.
uh,
I've already done all of the searches. I mean, I will tell you, ChatGPT was really helpful in putting some resources together just because I'm like,
okay.
where are the books? Where are the like, where's it? There's a couple podcasts, there's a couple like decent resources that are out there. But again, a lot of the stuff is more so, hey, this company already exists. You come in, get to know your team, get to know the platform, look for a tech debt, that all this stuff. And it's like,
Right.
we're not there yet.
Right,
We're not
right.
there yet.
The role of a CTO, when a startup is obviously it's a little different. I mean, really, again, that word is really probably that terminology needs to evolve, right? Because really, you are like the chief development officer. You are
Yeah,
the
you're
they
the
don't
lead developer
because
before anything.
yeah, because this is you're if you're a CTO of a tech company, and they don't have a product yet, or they're trying to build a product, you are the person that is the chief development officer. That doesn't mean that you're doing all the software development, but you are the person laying the architectural, footprint down of what this thing is going to look like, and
Right.
you are making some decisions on the tech stack and things of that nature, and how that will impact the business. So yeah, it's a lot versus going into a company that's been around for X number of years, and you're just kind of figuring out how to like just optimize and tune things.
Mhm.
So, but no, I think it's good. I think it's great. I'm happy for you. I think it's going to be one of those situations where you look back on it and be like, you know what, I learned a lot from this, and I know what I could do better. You'll be able to look at it just, even short term, like in 6 months, you'll be like, man, that was a phase that the company was going through. Now I need to learn about another phase of what the
Right.
company is going through, and evolve. And that's what you do. You do fine. I mean, come on, man. We breaking molds here. We got babies on the podcast. You are able to code with your son, podcast. Like that's what this is all about. It's like how do we, and this is something we don't talk about a lot of it. It's more of like we gotta be multifaceted, right? I mean, life is moving. You got to figure out how to grow into it, and to have a company, that a tech startup that she was working with, just to be able to see all the things you're doing and wanting you to join them. It's amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny because I was looking back at like pictures from us doing development day. And so for those that's not familiar, the program that we do, we work with the founders weekly for about 6 weeks, but we also have a big developer day right at the very beginning where we do like an 8-hour day to kind of kick off the development work. And so it's like our pictures from there. I mean, I brought my son, and my son goes everywhere. Like if you see me at a conference, you're going to see him. And that's just been since day one because that's just who I am. And I also feel like even though it's been uncomfortable at times, it's very we I don't know, maybe it's just the generational shift where it's like now, yeah, I know some people are uncomfortable with the idea of kids being in certain spaces, but this is just a reality that we live in. Um, I can't just, dip out and leave my son. Like I want to see all the first. I want him to also see what I do. And I'm not necessarily trying to push my lifestyle off on him, but I don't see a reason why he shouldn't get full exposure to what's going on. So when I go and travel to events and go to conferences and things, he goes to every event with me. So um
I told you should have put him on stage at the Hack with
I
the
know
Hub.
that was funny.
I was like, is he going on stage? Or you like, nope, he's not going on stage. I was like,
Yeah,
yo.
because he would have pulled my lavalier mic off in the middle of it. But
Well,
but next year he
this
gets
year,
to come out.
next year we gotta get him there for sure. Gotta get him there on stage, outfit, software developer shirt, the whole thing. Gotta rock it, because I think it's important because we talk about building software and and all that good stuff. Look at Brian Campbell in the house. I definitely think that we're doing more than just talking about bits and bytes, but also like this is a whole different lifestyle, right?
Mhm.
Nobody's going, not too many people are going in offices these days. So,
Yeah.
and finding, nobody wants to work. Even if you wanted to find a babysitter or a nanny or somebody to come to your house, ain't nobody coming to your house. Not for
Everybody's trying to stay home, man.
Everybody's trying to stay home, or they're going to want ridiculous amount of money. So, you just got to figure it out. And I think that's the cool thing about what we're doing. We're just breaking molds, right? That's what we do.
Yeah, I've always really felt like, especially with Detroit Black Tech, and I know me for my personal journey transitioning into tech, it was like I'm trying to get a job where I can support a family, and at that point in time, I didn't have a family yet, but I know like okay, I want to have kids, I want to have a family, and I don't want to be living below the poverty line, and like this is a game changer. This like moving into this industry has been a game changer for a lot of people because you go to a whole different tax bracket with one job. And it's not just about maintaining the finances though. It's definitely about also I know some people probably in past it was way more common to just be like, you know what, this parent is working, so it's just okay that they never get to see the child, and then the kids grow up with all kind of complexes, and we not doing that. We not doing that,
Yeah.
so maybe like I said, when I first started going to conferences and having my son at different like business events, first of all, he's not a crazy, like, whiny baby, as you can see. He just living his life now that I finally put him down, but, so I know that about him, but also I know that it's important for me to be able to do what I love to do at the same time. I wasn't trying to just completely write off my career and then just focus on, being at home all the time. So, um, I got a lot of good feedback from other women who were like, "Hey, I wish I had felt comfortable to do that when I had my child," or just being like coming to me personally and saying like seeing me doing that made them feel, more empowered to do the same thing. Or you might pull up with the baby at the event and then somebody else also got a baby at the event. You're like, "Yes."
Right.
Uh,
Right.
or
Right.
when we had our demo day just recently for Tech Town, it was a lot of people brought their kids, and just being more comfortable to have those types of environments where it's like career is nothing without family. Like if my family never sees me, then to me I'm not that's not a satisfactory career.
Yeah, man. I only do this because I want to make a better life for my family. I don't do this because I mean, I like tech, but I'm, you know, I have other things I could be doing, right? I could be playing with my son, could be hanging out with my daughter, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I definitely think family is important. For me right now, 'cause I think that's the kind of was that your shameless plug there, or was there another?
Oh, my shameless plug is I am launching my first class today. So
Oh,
we had our
what?
workshop last week, and
Okay. So what's the difference between the workshop and the class? So the
so
workshop gets them ready
workshops
for the
are
class.
kind of like shorter.
Okay,
They're
got you.
free, and I do those twice a month. But every month right now, I'm going to be doing a crash course. So
Okay.
just like starting to build up my
So
course catalog.
what was the workshop on last week?
We did create the GitHub repository for your personal
Got
you
you.
domain that you have, and then I'm launching like a JavaScript crash course just for folks that might want to kind of prep. Next week, our workshop is going to be learning to use Next.js without any previous React experience. So before we go into trying to use a framework, I'm like, okay, let's review if you need to, let's review. And then that's a way that, as I'm building out the content, people can actually support the content that's being created by donating to the site, and then they get access to the crash courses.
I love it. I love it. And what is the site?
Metadevgirl.com.
All right. That's
We
what's
out
up.
here, real official.
Real official. I love it. Metadevgirl.com. Let me see. Metadevgirl.com. I know you got your hands full. I'm about to put it in the link here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I know you got your flow. There you go. Here you go. We got to do it right here. All right.
Baby boy took his first jump in on the podcast. Say it's past my nap time.
There it is. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So and then I'll just do my shameless plug here. So we are gonna be doing we are coming over this whole Detroit Hacker House. It is going to be October 11th at the Hacker House in Midtown in Detroit. So we'll be just hanging out there. We'll probably have an Eventbrite come out pretty soon, so you can actually book. And then the other thing that I'm working on right now is I'm working on so many different things. I'm like, which one do I want to
I'm
talk
like, I
about?
saw you had an API come out. Like
Oh
you,
yeah,
you be so subtle with a lot of this stuff, and it just be popping up on LinkedIn.
oh yeah, man, that's what I do. Because they're just they're things that generate cash, little by little. But yeah, I just released a API for those who are in the world of phone systems. So if you're running a phone system and you want phone systems are old school, so a lot of them don't have a API. So I'm just building a framework. Well, it'll have a pluggable architecture where you'll be able to plug in different frameworks or plugins for different PBXs. So it's coming along, but that was the service I was talking about where I started running it and it was like, what? It's $200 a month. So that's where this whole conversation kind of came from, building a service and seeing what the true cost is, in one month. But anyway, that's one thing I'm working on as well. And then lastly, I think probably the big thing is that DepSep. DepSap. Is how you said DepSep? Yeah,
DapSep.
Dep-
Wait, what are you doing with DapSep? Because I've been trying to get reconnected to DapSep.
So DepSep is actually giving me an award. Actually,
Oh,
it is. Yeah, it's an award. It's going to be September 28th, I believe it is. I'm just going to look here. It's going to be September 28th. It's pretty intriguing because I'm actually putting my son in DepSep. I was never in DepSep. So when they were like, "Hey, I'm giving you an award," I was like, "Oh wow!" But basically, you get nominated by previous awardees, and so I thought that was really cool. It's a really good program. I knew all about it. I grew up in Southfield, so I never really was able to get to the program. But even though Southfield's not that far from Detroit, I just think it's my parents didn't take me.
Well, I don't know how I never got in DAPS-up, and I was like a stereotypical STEM kid, but I have been wanting to teach with them recently, but definitely congratulations because that program is really monumental, and that is the Detroit area pre-college engineering program here
Yeah.
in Detroit. So a lot of folks going through Detroit public schools end up kind of getting their first real STEM exposures through that program, through summer programs and different programs connected to the schools and some of the local universities. So it's really, really nice for folks to be able to see, or kids to be able to see what it looks like to live that lifestyle out.
Yeah, and the last thing about it, the award is called the Real McCoy Award, and I'm actually being I have a student I don't know what to say. I have a student counterpart that's also won the Real McCoy, and she built a it was a 3D image of something, and that's what got her nominated by her teacher. And so she actually had to ask me a question and I had to respond. So they recorded her. And then when they came to record me, they played the question for me and then I responded to it. But we'll both be on stage taking the award at the same time. So I thought that was really cool. I haven't really, Jessica has really been the one really, I think, really building stuff and being that people that look up to you, especially women, but kids as well for boot camps. I really don't focus on that, but it really helped me open my eyes on like how important it is to be role models for kids and from them to learn from you and all that good stuff. So definitely was more. The award is great, but the opportunity to be able to get more engaged with the youth and to understand, because I guess getting this award you're for the next year, kind of like it's almost like Miss Universe. For the next year, I'll be doing stuff that will that would actually use this Real McCoy Award to I think is going to be to hopefully get more people involved in DAPS-up and hopefully in STEM in general. So it's pretty interesting.
That's awesome. We can have a side conversation about I really want to do something for Grow Detroit's Young Talent, GDYT.
Mhm.
So that'll be a whole nother conversation. Maybe we'll have something to announce later. But
Yeah.
I actually did GDYT when that was how I initially got placed at Grand Circus. So it's like I never do GDYT. I probably never even venture into the world that I'm in like 7, 8 years later. So
Mm.
we have some hidden gems, but it's also about being able to offer those opportunities, right? So for me with GDYT, I was able to go and be an intern at Grand Circus, and that's when I sat in on classes and realized I liked to
Mhm.
code, and that just took me down the rabbit hole. So, um, all
Interesting.
right,
I didn't know that. I
we're
didn't
gonna
know
have
that.
to promote. We got Mr. Daps-up, whatever. Wait,
The Real
it's called the
McCoy.
Real McCoy, but I like calling him Mr. Daps-up, right?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I'll definitely be on my, out here, definitely talking about it for the next year and probably beyond because I can see it'll be something that I want to stay engaged with. But
Yeah.
that's it, man. I think this is a great show. Anything else we want to talk about?
I think we're good now. I appreciate anybody that has been sticking through it when it comes to having baby boy, and the lawn service is pulling in now. But we will definitely be back with our next episode next month. And of course, I think most folks already kind of know now. I'm usually live every week for episodes just like this. And I'm kind of getting a lot of that stuff integrated into the different websites, making sure we have our podcast sites published. And then I've been publishing content on metadevgirl.com as well. So we just want to support. And if you all want to let us know any type of topics you want to hear, I absolutely will be finding a way to get it into one of these series because it's really important to us to just kind of be able to help educate folks wherever you feel like those gaps are. So thanks again for joining us on this episode.
Okay, take care, folks.